Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to those of you around the world. Welcome to the daily Trade the Chain crypto update, where we give you everything you need to know for the next 24 hours and hopefully the next few days. Today is Thursday, December 21st, and we are nearing the end of the week before the holidays officially begin. Total crypto market cap sitting at 1.64 trillion, about even. Bitcoin slightly down, ETH about even. ETH sentiment looking a little bit better than Bitcoin daily sentiment, and average daily sentiment is 55 out of 100, so slightly down, but still, been sitting between that 50-60 level for a bit. Total tweet volume up, and total trading volume is up from yesterday as well, inching closer to that 70 billion number. Got a bunch of more crap coins in here having fun: TRB, Bake, XOR, Ray, Fun, and then stablecoin exchange flows looking, very, very positive in the past 24 hours. So had a lot of money added yesterday, a couple of drips off, but overall overall net add to exchanges. So that is positive to see. Bitcoin daily sentiment, still been mostly flat. Obviously got a little bit of a rise here. We'll go over that, but still staying above 40 sentiment. So that's positive. ETH sentiment actually did pick up from yesterday from those lows. So hopefully that's a good sign for ETH. It is, it's forming those higher lows. We'll obviously talk about some price action, but hopefully ETH does something soon. No guarantee, but sentiment certainly pointing to something happening in the near future. So DXY, we were talking about this dropping down lower. And before we even kind of really get into this price analysis, want to go over, we have PCE tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. I don't know why the PCE is not here, but it's expected to be 2.8%. Core is expected to be 3.3%. Obviously, both of those numbers are lower than the previous month. So as long as we come in at expectations, I would expect a positive reaction from equities and crypto, which would likely mean DXY goes down. So that's only if we get, the numbers that were expected or lower. Most numbers have been coming in at expectations, but that's only if, they come at expectations, but I believe that's more likely than not. So if we break below, these 101.8 levels for DXY, or this 101.8 level, it's just a level, we'll probably drop down to around 101. If you miraculously hold this level, then we will probably make our way back up to the 102.4, 102.5 area. Obviously, this dropping down is definitely good for risk. So equities had a big drop yesterday, and we, kind of, a couple hours after we spoke, and obviously it did break above the high, but I really don't know what the news was for this. There really wasn't much news. It was a bit of a random reaction, but as we spoke about yesterday, things still look good as long as we hold this level. And as you can see, that's exactly where we dropped down to. Happen to coincide with a 1 hour estimated 200 moving average, which is why I love the S200 estimated moving average. Always a great indicator for every time frame. So we held at the estimated 1 hour estimated 200 moving average. We got rejected at the weekly VWAP this morning. And now we're just kind of sitting in this range. So if we kind of zoom out a little bit and get rid of these, because it's pretty obvious how we look at things, is this is possibly a deviation. So that's certainly not what you want to see. But the good thing is technically, I guess, you have a lower low here, but if we kind of zoom out a little bit, they're mostly even, right? So let's do this, and then we will delete that. Yeah, so mostly even lows. So I'm not really going to call that, exactly a lower low, although, slightly. So, there is still a possibility for us to end up, you just kind of calling this an even low, kind of like this, and having a triple tap and then making our way up and doing something like that. So that's obviously the ideal situation. So the way that I'm looking at things right now is there's really no trade until you can get, back above the weekly VWAP. But, this level with this high is probably the more critical level in my opinion. So if you can get back above 47.47, then you can make your way up to these highs. And then obviously, start targeting that 48.20 level. And then obviously, if you break below the 4,700 level, then you will probably drop back down to 46.43. So pretty simple to look at equities in terms of trades. This is basically just a range. This is possible deviation, but this is also possible equal lows here. So no real point in taking too much action unless we break below 4,700 or we break above 47.48. Looking at Bitcoin, Very interesting price action, in my opinion. We've got kind of these double, kind of a lower time frame double top right here. But obviously, if this does form a low right here, you are still forming higher lows in the grand scheme of things ever since we formed that Monday low. The way that I'm looking at things, obviously we did drop below the 43.8 level. So we tagged, pretty much the critical levels for the drop. So, if you can get above this level right here, you obviously make it above or up to 44.5, 44.6. And the level that you need to break is, because I know some people do listen instead of watch, is, 44.2, you need to break above to get up to 44.6. And then if we break below the 43.3 level, we will drop down to the 42.8 level, which coincides with the Monday high, also the weekly VWAP, also the 1 hour estimated trader moving average. So there's a lot of confluence of support at 42.8. We can still drop there and still be forming higher highs in the grand scheme of things, or higher lows in the grand scheme of things. But obviously we need to continue making higher highs as well. So the ultimate goal is to get above the 44.3 level. I suppose you could do a long position here, maybe target the 44.3, maybe target 44.6 with your stop sitting at 43.2. So you risk 0.78% to make, anywhere between 1.5 to 2.3%. Not the best trade in the world, but definitely a trade opportunity in my opinion. You wouldn't really short because where are you going to put your stop? And you're technically your first short target would be here unless you actually confirm beneath 43.2. So I wouldn't say this is the best trade option in the world. It's just a trade option. And I'd still think Bitcoin looks good as long as it sits above, these highs right here, because these lows coincide with these highs, right? So as long as we're staying above kind of this whole range, as long as we're above the Monday high down here, everything's still looking fine in my opinion. It's just chop. And of course we have PCE tomorrow, which should likely be a catalyst. So everything looks fine for Bitcoin. Below 42.8, I would start to get worried because there's a lot of confluence of support right there. But we know our triggers for down, we know our triggers for up, and we know what our critical support and resistance is. So should be locked in for BTC. Now for ETH, we did obviously get rejected. We made our way back down to 22.24. We actually made it even lower. We made it down to 2,200 flat. So if you took the short trade this morning, you obviously had a good time. So the way that we're looking at this is, in the grand scheme of things, if you break above 2274, you should have pretty smooth sailing up to, well above 2,300. And if you break below 2224, you'll head right back to that 2,200 number. Below 2,200, you'll make your way down to 2155. So I wouldn't really, I'm not too confident in any ETH position because your risk down here is very similar to your gain up here. So I think you can probably still be patient with ETH, but when we look at market structure, of course, although we are getting cut down at these highs, they are still higher highs and these are still lower lows, right? So, in the grand scheme of things, we can just keep doing this for a while before moving higher, or obviously rejecting back lower, but we're still, keeping good market structure. So as long as this low right here holds, and that right here is that 2,200 low, then we should be fine. And I think, any price above 2224 is probably worth a long in my opinion. But the issue with the risk is that 2224 is just the Monday high and your local low today was, 2,200. So not really liking that trade. But if ETH does get above 2274, 2275, I do think you'll have a nice, pretty clean trade up to 2355, or at worst, up here to the 2330 level. So that is going to wrap things up. Oh, I'm sorry. I saw a comment here from Robert. He said he listens all day with his Bluetooth headphones in. So I do appreciate you listening, Robert. Hope it helps. And apologies, about not really talking about those levels, from a verbal perspective, just expecting everybody to see it. So I'll make sure, we keep talking about those strict levels and verbalize them for you. But obviously in the grand scheme of things, ETH BTC did pop back up. So, if you were playing that long trade that I mentioned yesterday, which, I told you didn't really like, it was just a very thin risk. So, and this does make things a little bit weird because you kind of have another shot at the trade because technically it just deviated these areas. So I mean, it did kind of bounce off. I would kind of want better confirmation because it's still beneath the weekly VWAP. But if ETH BTC is basically deviating above that 0.051 level that we talked about, again, not the worst trade in the world to move higher. So I wouldn't really, if you're longing ETH, then you should probably also be long Bitcoin. But if you are expecting, maybe ETH to make a slight comeback, it's basically now or never. So I don't mind ETH. I just don't see a clear trade from a lower time frame perspective, and therefore I think it's probably better to be patient. But I do think, I think ETH will head higher with the nice market structure we're seeing, because again, we've got higher lows, we've got higher highs, and overall are moving higher. So where I'd be worried about ETH is if it breaks below 2,200, it needs to hold 2,155. If it breaks below 2,155, market structure is officially lost, and then we have to change our bias. But again, kind of back to Bitcoin, I'm seeing bullish market structure. Everything, although it's been a bit of a chop fest, still at the end of the day, we are forming higher lows, and would like to continue to see that. Obviously, we've got these higher highs kicking too, right? So definitely want to see that continue. And that's why I talked about, breaking beneath these critical levels, because then, if we break below those critical levels that I lined out for BTC and ETH, market structure shifts. Then we have to shift our bias. Then we kind of have to, do we want to take longs? Do we want to take shorts? How do we want to approach it? So right now, longs, in my opinion, still look fine, especially with PCE tomorrow, which hopefully should be a good catalyst. So we're going to keep that bias until things change. We did get a request from new type, how's our pal SEI. Not much has changed from yesterday. Did kind of talk about, how we could just do something like this for a while. It seems to be doing that. So when did we talk? We talked Wednesday, right around 11:12. So yeah, so it did obviously move higher. It is higher than where we spoke yesterday. So if you did long or buy, you're in a good position. But it's kind of back to that same scenario where, you've got kind of defined risk if you want to take longs with a stop at 3,742, and trying to ride that up to the local highs at 42 cents or maybe higher. But again, you're kind of, now you're really longing into the wind here, right? Because if we zoom out on the 12-hour, like we spoke about yesterday, it's just kind of thin air, right? It doesn't look bad to me yet because the candle body close. If this current candle body closes below 3,852, I'd probably start to get a little bit worried, at least on the lower time frame. But in my opinion, this looks good, and it has precedent for doing moves like this too. Like it can sit up here, drop 20%, and then still move higher. So I wouldn't be too concerned about SCI right now, but I would also be cautious if you're a fresh SCI buyer. Another coin that I mentioned yesterday is Metis. Metis has had a great 24 hours. So when I spoke yesterday, it was Wednesday, where it was in between these two candles right here. And Metis is up, let's see, from the previous daily close, up 13%. So Metis looking pretty good. Very happy about that. If it breaks above this level right here, which is 32.5, it should fly. And let's keep zooming out. I don't know why that's not normalizing. Yeah, so if it breaks above 32.5, next target would be 35.4, and then the target after that would be about 44.6. So I like Metis, and the reason I like Metis is because they're doing an innovation fund, which is similar to what INJ did. It's about the same amount. I think INJ was 150 million. And if we look at the INJ chart over the past year, INJ, one of the best performing assets on the market. INJ is up, about 2,600% from the January lows. So if you bought INJ, less than $2, you are up, I think, 13x, something like that. So maybe more than that. You'd be up almost 20x. So yeah, so that's why I like it. Obviously missed a lot of the INJ boat friends told me to buy a long time ago. I didn't. That was very stupid of me. But it's been explosive, and Metis is kind of doing the same thing. So I'm, probably wouldn't expect the same level of explosive growth because INJ definitely larger, well-known project. But hey, we'll see how Metis goes because they just made their announcement. I want to say Sunday or Monday. It was on CoinDesk, so you can look it up. You can just Google Metis CoinDesk, and you'll see the the $150 million eco fund. So definitely keeping a close eye on this one. I've got a nice little bag. I'll be leverage trading a little bit, but really just kind of riding the spot bag because I think it's going to have a lot of volatility and possibly some heavy gains too. So with that being said, good luck, happy trading. See everybody tomorrow. Remember to watch out for PCE, and if you're not in the TTC community, you can join with a 14-day free trial at www.tradethechain.com. Peace out. Happy trading.